The Ghost Dance, An Introduction to Native American Religious Traditions. Even though I have been reading and teaching about world religions for a very long time, I came to realize that, among many other things, my knowledge of Native American Indian spirituality is quite limited, in spite of being born and spending my entire childhood just 9 miles from an Indian reservation. Part of my reason for assembling this unit is to change that. In many ways, I am learning along with you as I put this unit together. We'll be doing 3 readings for this unit on Native American or American Indian spirituality, and I intend to talk about all of them here before turning you loose to read for yourselves. 2 of our 3 authors are Indians. Indeed, both of them are Lakota, a group division of the greater Sioux Nation. The third, while not an Indian, was, like me, curious about them, and so I'll be using him as a sort of guide or stepping stone into the subject of the American Indians and their beliefs. He's someone that we've already met in this course. Before I begin, though, I'll just lay out the plan so you can see where I intend to go, as this is a very big subject, and I must choose my way carefully so that you learn as much as you can in the short amount of time that we have. First, I'll say a word about primal religious traditions, which is what the traditions and beliefs of the Native Americans or American Indians, I will use the terms interchangeably, are. Next, I'll introduce our authors and note that this class will see us time traveling to 2 different events in different centuries, related to us through the memories of the people who were there. I'll say a word about each of them and the contribution they are offering us through their words and readings. Finally, I will explain an important Indian ceremony that will play a crucial role in 2 of our readings. Let's begin. And I found this colorful and striking photo of a Lakota Native American man dancing at a powwow in South Dakota, 2018. He may be in Pine Ridge or Rosebud, I'm not sure, but I rather like this photo. It's just a stock photo. I don't know who the man in the picture is. Primal religious traditions. Religion scholar Jeffrey Brodd uses the term primal religious traditions to refer to the beliefs of native peoples, beliefs which people held before the arrival of the global religions, of which there are 2, Christianity and Islam, the religions that did the most expanding and converting over the last 2,000 years. If you look at a map and see how the world's religions are represented, you can see that Christianity and Islam dominate, right? Most of the world is either Christian or Muslim because those 2 religions really worked hard to promote themselves over the last 2,000 years. Native American religion or spirituality would fit into the category of primal religious tradition. 2 distinct things set primal religious traditions apart from the world's 2 global religions. First, primal traditions and beliefs are confined to smaller groups or communities of people. Second, primal traditions and beliefs rely on oral traditions rather than writing. Both of these things make studying them a challenge. Small groups can mean great variety among populations of people. The beliefs and customs of one group on one side of the country might differ greatly from those on the other. The Lakota of the Great Plains and the Apache of the American Southwest, for example, had very different beliefs, customs, and rituals, for they were very different groups of people, speaking different languages and living in very different environments. And something kind of got lodged in my brain while I was reading this last paragraph. I noted that Christianity and Islam are the 2 global religions. You might, wonder, well, there are Jewish people, for example, living all over, or, Hindus. People have emigrated, like Sikhs and Hindus have emigrated from places like India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and are living, in Canada, the United States, all over. So the UK, etc. So what about them? But that's a bit different. Christianity and Islam they spread, right? The religious movements got started, and then they spread out as people were converted. These other religious groups, they may have, communities here, there, all around the world, but they didn't promote themselves or spread the same way that Christianity and Islam did. So that's why they're not global religions the same way as the second 2 Abrahamic faiths. And just in case you were wondering that when I was reading, getting back to what I was saying, but writing or the lack of it, yeah, I was just talking about some of the challenges of studying primal religious traditions. Okay, and the lack of writing is one of them. Writing or the lack of it makes understanding these primal religions even harder because we must rely on oral traditions related to us in a time of great change. In the 1800s, the lives and experiences of American Indians were being drastically altered by the arrival of white settlers, whom the Lakota referred to as Wasichus. So Wasichu, you'll see that word when you read Black Elk. He talks about Wasichus, he means white people. Their horses, guns, and their assimilation into a new way of life. I should say their assimilation of the Indians into a new way of life. The Wasichus were not being assimilated; they were assimilating the indigenous or Native American people. So I will go and change that later. Even though our look at Native American religion will be confined to just one area, the Great Plains, where I grew up, and even more specifically, southwestern South Dakota, one nation, the Sioux, one group, the Lakota, and the span of less than 1 century, the decades between 1890 and 1973, we may still be left with a less than accurate grasp of what these people traditionally believed. So that was a really long, unwieldy sentence. I'm just going to say that we are focusing on a very specific group of people in a very specific place in a very specific time, and yet even that may not give us the best idea of what the people of these what the Lakota people traditionally believed. Right, so we're doing our best, but that might not be enough. But it's the best we can do. Therefore, as I said, we can only do our best. Okay, and here is a map just to give you an idea of the part of the world or the part of the country we'll be looking at. We'll be mostly focused on this red part of South Dakota here. Okay, so this is the Rosebud Reservation. It's just 9 miles north of where I grew up, where I was born and grew up here in Valentine. Okay, and Pine Ridge over here, this is north of Gordon, Nebraska. Okay, so this is where our focus will be. All right, so I just talked about how there isn't a lot of writing that we can rely on because for the most part, indigenous North American people they didn't have writing, right? They communicated and passed on the traditions through word of mouth. So in a thought that I return to often, which is interesting to bring up right after noting the lack of religious writings in primal religions, is a reflection on the magic of writing that I try to contemplate and appreciate each day. So the idea that writing and reading are magic. Okay, and I try to think about this every single day. It comes from the American scientist Carl Sagan and is about the power of writing and reading. Here's the short version of what I want you to think about. He said, "Books allow people long dead to talk inside our heads." Okay, the full quote: "Books, purchasable at a low cost, permit us to interrogate the past with high accuracy, to tap the wisdom of our species, to understand the point of view of others, and not just those in power, to contemplate with the best teachers the insights painfully extracted from nature of the greatest minds that ever were, drawn from the entire planet and from all our history. They allow people long dead to talk inside our heads." Books allow the dead to speak to us, and they also allow for a kind of time travel, making the memories of people who lived long ago accessible and alive again to us as we read them. In religious traditions, writing allows us to visit important events and sermons as described by people living long ago. And for primal religious traditions, like those of the American Indians, they are our last link with a past. Sorry, let me start over. And for primal religious traditions, like those of the American Indians, they are our last link with a past that would otherwise be totally forgotten, preserved in the memories of the last people who lived and experienced them before writing allowed for their preservation. To read really is to travel through time. And we will now take 2 journeys through time to visit 2 American Indians who are able to share their insights into their religion with us. One of them will speak to us through firsthand memories from the year 1890, while the other speaks to us with memories from 83 years later, in 1973, generations after contact with white settlers, Wasichus, had changed Indian life forever, by someone working to keep her traditions alive. Let's meet them. But first, I have one other person in mind before we get started. Our voices from the past. Our starting point for this journey is 1967, the year someone we know well in this course, Father Thomas Merton, published his essay War and Vision in a publication called The Catholic Worker. I have a paperback collection of essays Father Thomas Merton wrote on Native Americans. His book, Ishi Means Man, which was published in 1968, the same year that he died. In fact, that's a picture of it on the left here. That's the exact copy that I have on the desk next to me right now. However, I had some difficulty finding the essay War and Vision online. The best I could do was a PDF facsimile of the original publication, which, as a scan of an old newspaper, is turning yellow and is formatted in a way that is not very reader friendly. Therefore, I will provide the PDF, but I'll also summarize what Merton says in his essay. But as a non-Native American who shares Merton's lifelong interest in other religious perspectives, I thought his written thoughts on American Indians would be a good stepping stone into the subject. And while Merton speaks to us from 1967, he's a fellow traveler seeking to learn from the past, just as we are. Okay, our next author. After Merton's ideas are read and discussed, we will meet Nicholas Black Elk, a holy man or medicine man of the Oglala tribe of the Lakota people. And just to help you out here, we'll show you on this map. This is the same map that we saw earlier. The Oglala tribe live here in the Pine Ridge Reservation. Okay, so this is where Black Elk lived. Or I should say, that's not where he lived his whole life. It's where he spent the last decades of his life. All right, so he was an Oglala Lakota. Black Elk lived in the Black Hills of South Dakota and spent much of the last part of his life on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation just north of Rushville, Nebraska. Black Elk was a very interesting man. He was a cousin of the war leader Crazy Horse and fought alongside him against the 7th Cavalry Regiment of the United States Army in the Battle of Little Bighorn, Montana. And that's on our map too. I'll show it to you. Whoops. Let me try that again. There it is. Yeah, the Battle of Little Bighorn, which was fought here just off of the Sioux land, possibly in the Crow land. So the Crow were another native nation that were the traditional enemies of the Lakota. But yeah, that's where the Battle of Little Bighorn took place. Okay. By the way, I don't want to overstuff you with information, and I'm almost afraid I'm doing that. I will try very hard to keep it simple and straightforward. We're focusing on one particular group of Native Americans, the Lakota, in one particular place, South Dakota, right? And we're talking about one particular thing, the ghost dance, which I'll talk about shortly. So those are the most important things I want you to think about. The most important things I want you to remember. So anything extra, I do hope that it clarifies and enriches. It does not obscure. That is my hope. Anyway, Black Elk and his cousin Crazy Horse fought against the 7th Cavalry Regiment of the United States Army in the Battle of Little Bighorn, Montana. Also famously known as Custer's Last Stand in 1876, where General George Armstrong Custer met his death. Later, Black Elk toured and performed in Europe as a part of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. Here's an 1890 photo of Black Elk with Buffalo Bill and some other Indian performers taking a break in Rome, Italy. This is not the best frame shot. The photographer should have stood a little bit further to the left, and then he would have gotten Buffalo Bill completely in the shot. But that's Buffalo Bill on the right, and this is Black Elk here. In fact, the photo on the cover of the book, Black Elk Speaks, this is Black Elk actually as a young man wearing his costume that he wore when he was performing in Buffalo Bill's show. Black Elk was also one of the 51 survivors of the Wounded Knee Massacre at Wounded Knee Creek, South Dakota in 1890, where some 300 and likely more of his people were killed by U.S. soldiers from the same regiment, the 7th Cavalry, that Black Elk and his cousin Crazy Horse had fought at Little Bighorn 14 years earlier. And the days leading up to this massacre will be the focus of our reading from Black Elk. Our reading from Black Elk comes from a book entitled Black Elk Speaks, which was published in 1932, which was compiled by a series of interviews the Nebraska poet John Neihardt had with Black Elk's son serving as translator. Black Elk could not speak English well and was illiterate, so these interviews and the book that resulted from them are a valuable glimpse into the past of the Lakota people, their traditions, and their beliefs. Here's an interesting photo of Neihardt sitting with Black Elk. That's Neihardt on the left. Black Elk is here. This man on the right is named Standing Bear, and he was a lifelong friend of Black Elk's. Black Elk told his life story to Neihardt, who wrote it down and published it as Black Elk Speaks. Standing Bear was present for a lot of the events that Black Elk talked about and was sort of a corroborating witness, right? He would offer details maybe that Black Elk forgot to include. So he just sort of was there to supplement Black Elk's telling of his story. Before we move on, I'm just going to show you this other photo next to the cover of our book, Black Elk Speaks. This is Neihardt on the right. This is a much older Black Elk. And this photo was taken in 1945, 13, 14 years after the book Black Elk Speaks was published. So Neihardt and Black Elk stayed close in the years that followed. Okay. Parenthetical remark. I would heartily recommend the book Black Elk Speaks, and I had a difficult time picking a chapter for you to read for this course. I wanted one that would speak to you without the context of the rest of the book, and hope that I chose well. There were a number of good chapters, and I really wanted to choose the right one for you. And while they are not as relevant to the content of this course, my favorite chapters concern Black Elk's time in Europe performing in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, including performing in London for Queen Victoria and then meeting her in person. Black Elk calls her Grandmother England every time he mentions her. I say again that reading is real-life time travel that allows people who lived long ago to share their memories with we who live in the present. So we get to visit 1800s London and see the meeting between Black Elk and Queen Victoria. I also wanted to share with you this circus poster. It's for Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. The show featured Indian performers wearing, feathers and war paint, riding on horseback, doing war dances and simulating attacks. They weren't really attacking anyone, but it was just for the show. And on the right, we have a portrait of Buffalo Bill on his horse, Colonel W.F. Cody, and the promise Buffalo Bill will appear at every performance. So this is a bit of time travel too, right? Imagine this is a brand new poster. They'd been put up on the wall. The show was coming to town, and people looking and feeling excitement about this show that was going to come, see the world famous Buffalo Bill, see Indians for the first time. A lot of these people had probably never seen Indians. So, yeah, this is a little bit of time travel, looking at this poster. Okay. I provide some additional info under each picture, but I'm not going to read all of that right now. You can look over these things yourself. Okay, one final interesting fact about Black Elk was that, though a Lakota holy man, he converted to Catholicism in 1904 at the age of 40, even becoming a catechist, that is, a religious education teacher, specifically one who helps prepare new converts to enter into the Christian life. And yet, Black Elk never stopped participating in or practicing his traditional Lakota ceremonies. With this, I'm reminded of Father Thomas Merton's wish to become as good a Buddhist as I can. Remember, Father Thomas Merton wanted to become the best Buddhist he could be while remaining a Christian. Black Elk's grandson, George Looks Twice, said he was comfortable praying with his pipe, that is his ceremonial pipe for ritual tobacco smoking, and his rosary, and participated in Catholic Mass and Lakota ceremonies on a regular basis. In 2017, the Roman Catholic Diocese of Rapid City opened an official cause for his beatification, which means his life and work will be investigated so that he might be considered for sainthood. And so one day we may refer to him as Saint Black Elk. And maybe by the time you hear this video or you see this video, maybe he will already be called that. But as of March 2026, he's still being investigated. Okay, I also wanted to share this picture. It's Black Elk. Here he is, much older, standing in his local parish church, Our Lady of the Sioux in Pine Ridge. And this is his cousin Eagle Elk standing with him. I like that Black Elk is wearing, right, the traditional Lakota war bonnet with the feathers. He's wearing it in the church. Our third voice comes from someone a little closer to our time, Mary Bravebird, also known by her married name, Mary Crow Dog, a Brule Lakota writer and civil rights activist from Rosebud, South Dakota. And just quickly, we'll show you on the map where she's from. So this is the Rosebud Reservation. See, this is the Pine Ridge Reservation, which is where the Oglala Sioux lived. That's where Black Elk was. Over here is the Rosebud Reservation, where the Brule Lakota tribe lives. This is just 9 miles from the border from where I was born and grew up, so it's very close to my hometown. And that is where Mary Crow Dog, or Mary Bravebird, her other name, was born there. Mary Bravebird was a founding member of the American Indian Movement, AIM, in the 1970s, along with her husband, Leonard Crow Dog. The American Indian Movement was a civil rights movement that was sort of patterned after the African American civil rights activists of the 1960s. So people like Martin Luther King, right? Except instead of promoting African American rights, they promoted American Indian rights. AIM, American Indian Movement. And this is Leonard Crow Dog, Mary Bravebird's husband. Again, there's more info about these photos. You can read that for yourself. Mary Bravebird contrasts with Black Elk in that she decidedly and categorically rejected Christianity in favor of Native American spirituality, which ultimately led to her marriage to Leonard, who was a Lakota medicine man, just like Black Elk. In her 1990 autobiography, Lakota Woman, which I read in preparation for this class, and I've included a short excerpt from this book for you to read as well. In her autobiography, Lakota Woman, Mary Crow Dog, or Mary Bravebird, explains at several points how she regarded Christianity as the white man's religion, not hers or her people's. Twice she refers to Indians who became Christians as having let themselves be white-manized. From my reading of her book, her rejection of Christianity did not seem to be based on whether or not Christianity was true, but because doing so would be a betrayal of her culture, her people, and her identity as a Lakota woman. Our reading from Mary Bravebird describes an important incident in American Indian civil rights, the 1973 occupation of Wounded Knee, South Dakota, by members of the American Indian Movement, AIM, the very same place where the massacre foreshadowed by Black Elk occurred some 83 years earlier, and where Mary Bravebird's husband Leonard Crow Dog revived the ghost dance, which I will talk about next. The ghost dance. Before we begin our readings, I'll just briefly introduce the ghost dance, a ceremony incorporated into numerous Native American belief systems. The ghost dance is probably the most important thing you will learn about this week, and its memory is a key part of two of your readings, both from Black Elk and Mary Bravebird, though Father Thomas Merton mentions it as well. The ghost dance is a ceremony incorporated into numerous Native American belief systems and a genuine Native American movement, with different nations, divisions, and tribes all adopting it. It began in Nevada in 1889 by members of the Paiute tribe. One of them, a man called Wavoka, meaning woodcutter, his English name was Jack Wilson. Jack Wilson was the name he took when he was baptized. Jack Wilson, or Wavoka, claimed to have visions of a future world promised to both his own people and to all the other Native American tribes and nations across North America, and a special circle dance that would make this new world a reality. Okay, here is a photo of Wavoka taken in 1891. Wavoka and his ghost dancers believed that continuous dancing would call forth the Messiah, whom Wavoka named as Jesus, who would resurrect all the dead Indians and their ancestors, renew the land, and bring about the return of the buffalo herds to the plains. To bring this return and renewal of the world about, Indians of every tribe and nation had to take part in the dance. And so Wovoka wrote a letter that he had sent out for Indians all across the United States to read. So he had a young Indian, whose name I forgot, but is actually mentioned in this letter, write this letter and distribute it. I believe he was an Arapaho. The Arapaho, I think, lived in Wyoming, what is now Wyoming. Anyway, the Messiah letter of Wovoka. When you get home, you must make a dance to continue 5 days. Dance 4 successive nights, and the last night keep up the dance until the morning of the fifth day, when all must bathe in the river and then disperse to their homes. You must all do in the same way. I, Jack Wilson, Wovoka, love you all, and my heart is full of gladness for the gifts you have brought me. When you get home, I shall give you a good rain cloud, which will make you feel good. I give you a good spirit and give you all good paint. I want you to come again in 3 months, some from each tribe there in Indian Territory. There will be a good deal of snow this year and some rain. In the fall, there will be such a rain as I have never given you before. Grandfather, that's a universal title of reverence among Indians, and here meaning the Messiah says, the Messiah, grandfather says, when your friends die, you must not cry. You must not hurt anybody or do harm to anyone. You must not fight. Do right always. It will give you satisfaction in life. This young man has a good father and mother. He possibly refers to Casper Edson. Casper Edson was the name I forgot. Casper Edson is the person I think who wrote down this letter and then like distributed it to the many different tribes of Indians. So this refers to Casper Edson, the young Arapaho who wrote down this message of Wovoka for the delegation. Wovoka continues, do not tell the white people about this. Jesus is now upon the earth. He appears like a cloud. The dead are still alive again. I do not know where they will be, maybe this fall or in the spring. When the time comes, there will be no more sickness and everyone will be young again. Do not refuse to work for the whites, and do not make any trouble with them until you leave them. When the earth shakes at the coming of the new world, do not be afraid. It will not hurt you. I want you to dance every 6 weeks. Make a feast at the dance and have food that everybody may eat. Then bathe in the water. That is all. You will receive good words again from me sometime. Do not tell lies. The ghost dance was first practiced by the Nevada Northern Paiute tribe in 1889, but soon other nations and their tribes were dancing the ghost dance as well. This included the Lakota, who were living in poverty and starving after the demise of the buffalo and their way of life and the taking of their land. The ghost dance gave the desperate Lakota new hope as the new world described by Wovoka, one where their dead would live again, the buffalo herds would return, and the Indians would return to their old ways that they had had before the arrival of the Wasichus, and they embraced it with enthusiasm. It was called the Ghost Dance by Wasichus by their translation of the Lakota term Wanagi Wasipi. Wanagi means ghost or spirit or soul of the dead. Wasipi means dance. When white settlers, missionaries, and government agents encountered the Lakota doing the dance and learned that the Lakota believed that performing it would bring back the dead, they translated Wanagi Wasipi into English as spirit dance, or more commonly, ghost dance. Writing about the ghost dance in another 1967 essay, Father Thomas Merton describes it as a desperate appeal to supernatural powers to send a religious liberator, but that white America was having none of that, referring to the Wounded Knee Massacre, which brought the ghost dance movement to a sudden and shocking end. Our readings from Black Elk and Mary Bravebird will give us two glimpses at the ghost dance, one from two different sides of the Wounded Knee Massacre, one in 1890 and one from 1973, decades later. I found this and wanted to include it as well. It's a real glimpse back in time, an authentic Sioux ghost dance recorded in 1894. This was recorded by a man named William Kennedy Dixon, who was a cinematographer who worked for Thomas Edison. So this is an 18-second film. It's very short and it's silent, right? There was no sound back then, but it's a real life glimpse at real Sioux ghost dancers. If you click on the image, it'll take you to the video. Finally, I have two additional points that I want you to keep in mind before we go forward. First, I noted above that there were many nations, divisions, and tribes of American Indians, each with its own unique culture, beliefs, and traditions. Wovoka's ghost dance began in Nevada with the Paiute people, but, as noted, spread to other tribes suffering the loss of their lands. Many of these tribes, such as the Lakota and the Crow people from what is now Wyoming and Montana, had been enemies and rivals for generations. Black Elk refers to this rivalry more than once in Black Elk Speaks. But the ghost dance saw these different peoples putting their differences aside for the first time. Another Lakota medicine man alive at that time, John Fire Lame Deer, a younger contemporary of Black Elk, recalled hearing one man say, let me read that again. Another Lakota medicine man alive at the same time, John Fire Lame Deer, a younger contemporary of Black Elk, recalled hearing one man say, "This new ghost dance religion must be good because now when we meet men who used to be our enemies, Crows, Assiniboines, Pawnees, that ghost dance has made us into friends and brothers. Now we are just one big tribe, Indians." Second and finally, I would observe that the traditional Lakota religion, as well as the ghost dance religion, may be considered an organized religion in light of its highly structured, defined rituals, with different members of the community playing specific and specialized roles. And Black Elk describes several of these in Black Elk Speaks as well. While the Lakota people had no written language, and so no holy book like the Bible or Quran, they nevertheless had a well-defined cosmology, a cultural narrative telling of the beginning, nature, and structure of the universe and the place of humankind inside it, an understanding of human nature, a commonly shared set of ideas which guided their lives and helped them make sense of the world. And it seems reasonable to understand that this wish to make sense of their circumstances explained the success of the ghost dance religion among so many diverse peoples all across the western United States. The term organized religion would most certainly apply to the Lakota spirituality, rituals, and traditions. Okay, that was much longer than I planned on it being. I hope that you appreciated and understood what I was talking about. And I hope that this prepared you for the readings that I put together for this class. Thank you so much for staying with me.